Morning to you, sir. It is such a pleasure to have you with us here. The, the Sizzla himself. Left to make sure the microphone. And good morning. Are we being joined by the musician? You know, it is a tradition that when the king enters the court, the musicians must come. The priest must come. Where is the priest? Are you wearing two hats this morning? Two turbans? Yes. Okay. All right. Maybe I should move this microphone over so that there's no need to. Might have to do a change. All right. While we get the audio set up, I will just continue to let you know that in the house now, and we'll hear their voices shortly. We have with us, I've been promising you from earlier in the week, that as we celebrate all things Rastafarian this month, we would have with us notable members of the community. And I think it is a fitting start to the season that we have both Miss Maxine Stowe and we have with us, I'm going to use both names, Mr. Miguel Orlando Collins, but officially and spiritually recognized as Sizzla Kalonji. I hope I got the pronunciation right. I've been practicing.
Perfectly so.
All right. He said perfectly so. We have to get the microphone. Would you take the microphone in your hand when you're ready? Or Maxine, we can start by just welcoming you back to the show.
Yeah, blessed morning to Morning Connection.
Yes.
Connecting with your lovely and edified audience, because you've been fertilizing them for quite a few months.
We've been preparing the
You've
field.
been preparing
that is
them
true.
for such a reason as this, I'm happy to have the station and your program as a media partner for the month, and just looking forward to the revelations that should, emerge this morning.
Can I tell you, yesterday, at some point in the mid-morning-ish, Mr. Shaw said to me, we need to promote this all day. So we went even deeper with the promotion because I think somewhere there was just the growing understanding that these conversations are important. They're important not just for the Rastafarian community, but they're important for Jamaica at large. You and I are in agreement that the role which the Rastafarians have played in Jamaica and for Africans everywhere is a critical one, and the awareness keeps expanding.
Yes.
You see more and more persons first recognizing that the freedom of expression is tied up with your very existence and your cultural artifacts. You are entitled to ownership of it, participation in the economics of it, and it's a gift to the world. So now we see everyone acknowledging that what Rasta has created, the music that has come out of it, really are to be recognized at the highest levels as a gift to the world. How do you feel as a gift to the world?
Well, we're approaching 100 years, 1930 to 2030, and that globally 2030 is a major year about achieving sustainable goals. So we're 2022?
Mm-hmm.
So we're just 8 years to go. So
and 8 is the number of new beginnings.
Well,
so this
here.
is a fortuitous time. I'm going to ask you to just introduce our special guest in his true character, both spiritually and politically. I mean, he's so well known as an artist that goes without saying. But I'd like you to do the introduction before he gets to just, greet us. I'm sure he has something planned as a greeting.
Yes, well, he sits in the office of the indigenous Rastafari president. He was given that role by the Nyabingi Ancient Council, who saw in him the characteristics to carry their guidance. As you know, they are the custodians of the community, and they saw within him the characteristics that they could rely on. And as you know, our Rastafari reggae artists are the missionaries
Mm-hmm.
who established the faith outside of the Grow Nation and the Nyabingi, gatherings, establish it to the nation and to the world. And at this stage, being the parties who have, grown up with the faith and this whole establishment, it makes sense to me that they would also be recognized in the administration, because they are the ones that are out there,
Yes.
the pathways.
They would be the apostles,
They
if
would
one
be the
would, in the Christian language, so to speak. They are
Right.
out there.
And also, most likely, the ambassadors and the negotiators. Yeah, especially with the economics, having been driven by their contracts
their output,
and their output,
because they are creating, and they're the ones creating the wealth and controlling the wealth in some instances.
Through their contractual with these third parties, and they themselves may not be in the best contractual
True.
relationship, and that's where I think everything has merged now, where we need their service, not simply as missionaries, but as business people, administrators, and ambassadors. So,
all right, I just want to welcome back to the set Pastor Percival. Pastor Percival is doing double duty this morning. He's host and he's chauffeur and he's daddy. It's not even double duty, it's triple duty. So he just dropped his children off. And he's back. Pastor Percival, our very special guest has been royally introduced by Maxine, our sister Maxine, who is now family to us. So she has done the honors of introducing our guest. And may I just emphasize for you that this morning he's with us in his capacity as president in the office of the indigenous peoples of Jamaica, really.
Yes.
It is not just the Rastafarian community, because other groups have been recognized as being indigenous.
Yeah, and it's by blood as well as by culture, because all of us have family members, or we're in the bloodline of all these indigenous groups. So even when we use the word indigenous, it's not outside of our actual self. It becomes one group.
It becomes one group. So it's by blood and election.
By
so
blood and election and selection.
And selection. All right. The president is about to just greet us. Greetings to you.
Greetings to each and everyone in the name of the Most High, His Imperial Majesty, Emperor King Selassie Jah, Rastafarian. Pleasant morning, and I'm honored being here on this program. Bless you.
I thank you so much.
Morning, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Good. We in preparation for you coming. We were talking about Judgement Yard, and I was wondering, how did it get its name? Because we're talking about judging and what that means.
Well, I can see, you're a sagacious judge of a character. And the Judgment Yard was named based upon Psalms 9.
Okay.
Where it says, His Majesty will establish a throne of judgment to judge his people. And I said, if it is throne of judgment, this is the yard, Judgment Yard.
Okay. All right.
Based
So
on
we
Psalms
don't
9.
get it now, because that his throne is built upon righteousness and justice.
Exactly.
Psalms 89.
Rastafari.
And truth and mercy is part of his throne.
Exactly.
All right then.
So I had one visit to Judgment Yard, and the only thing I didn't see being done is judging. And I make that comment because we've always talked about justice as being not the narrow business of resolving disputes, but justice in the true sense, involving how we relate to one another, dealing righteously and fairly with one another. So my one visit to Judgment Yard exposed me to a number of elements that I want to pull on with you. I saw people being fed. I myself was royally fed. I left
some
with
good
fruits.
stew and stuff.
I'm not telling you what I got. When you go,
It's some serious.
because
Ital
Pastor
stew.
will
You know, I
arrive
grew
and
up on that
ask
in-
for what I got. So
No, sir.
he
No,
needs
sir.
to get
I am
his
not.
own.
No. I am not. envious or anything. I just
Oh,
wondered
no, not
what you have
envious.
in terms of the stew, because in terms of history, my
Don't
my
follow
brother
me
is
here.
though deceased.
I
Was
beg
a
you, Mr.
Rastafarian.
President, don't follow him down that rabbit hole.
So in the earlier days, talking about in the 70s and the 80s, him on the back was every day, the different things, and it was good food.
Up until
I
this
tell you,
time.
yeah, man, it
Yes.
is. So I know. That's why I asked her what she got when she said she was royally fed.
My lips are sealed.
All right, I leave that up to you. So I go eat off my own provisions. I said,
Absolutely.
yes, man.
You need to go and be fed.
Yeah.
But that's what I saw. I saw community, I saw fellowship.
Yes.
And we had a brief conversation about restorative justice. So I know there's justice in Judgement Yard, but I want to focus your attention on how it is that you, in your office of president, seeks to impact community life.
Thank you very much. A very beautiful question. Well, first, before I go any further, it is a part of our culture. It is of paramount importance to say a word of prayer to the Most High and give thanks unto the Supreme. So first I'll say, blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the ways of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight shall be in the Lord the Almighty, and on his laws he shall meditate day and night. He shall be as a tree planted by the rivers of water, which bringeth forth its fruits in due seasons. His leaves also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. The wicked are not so, but are like the chaff which the wind driveth away. Therefore the wicked shall not stand in the presence of Rastafari, neither sinners in the congregation of the righteous. Rastafari know the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked man shall perish, said the Most High Jah Rastafari. Peace, love, and blessing, and greetings once again. Now, the way about uniting the people through the office of the presidency, the indigenous office, given by the ancient council of the Tafarian. First, I'll start with community service. And community service is of paramount importance because this is the order of the conquering lion of the tribe of Judah representing its people in the diaspora worldwide, based upon the fact that they're still in the manner of being in the servitude realms. So the servitude realms, excuse me. So therefore we start with the community, and being someone who are intimately involved in discussions, in matters, in activities in the community. It's like hands on the handle, boots on the ground. You're collecting the report from the people. You're there with the people, seeing the people, knowing the people's needs and all their welfare and well-being. You share all those stuff, their emotions, their feeling towards the oppressed system. You're there with them. So we start with the community, with the people. Starting with the people, you can then teach the people of His Majesty. You can then teach the people of their ancient ways, being taught to us by our elders, through the foundation such as the Ethiopian, through the Haile Selassie Rastafari Royal Ethiopian Judah Catholic Church, 11 Welcome Avenue, Kingston 11, and through the Ethiopia Africa Black International Congress, True Divine Church of Salvation. They're all foundations being laid there and left for us to simply follow the pathway. And we'll start with ourselves on the third matter. You have to be someone of good and strict self-discipline, high degree of love to deal with the people, because they're being oppressed every day, and you as a present leader for the people, you need to be in the humblest state as for you to relate with the people to know the way forward. Rastafari.
I hear that and I understand it, and I'm hearing a pattern of service.
Yes, exactly.
A pattern of service which is represented in terms of when Jesus came, he said, I don't come to deal with those who don't save already. I come to deal with those who need salvation and need to be broken about. So you're following a pattern. There's a pattern that you're following in terms of what I call service, because in order to lead people, you have to serve them first.
Exactly, and that pattern can be described as the Rastafari family would say, to fulfill the creed. And to fulfill the creed is the hungry be fed, the naked be clothed, the sick be nourished, the aged protected, and the infants be cared for. And fulfilling the creed, it's the given duty of the Most High from the household of the parents.
True.
Because these are duties for the mother and the father. Therefore, these are duties being handed down from their ancestors. Parents must be from the throne. So, hence, the first thing is to fulfill the creed. And in doing so, we share that hospitable frequency between each and every one, because it's one human family, and we all need to be caring for each other.
True. That's so true. So when what you're saying is that if people seek to divide based on race or ethnicity is wrong, because it's one human family, and that is how it was created.
Exactly.
Okay.
So division will only plunge us into damnation. But when we're united, we're much stronger. And as it says in the Rastafari family, one for all for one. His Majesty is the great and ever-living King, the umbrella which we all find ourselves beneath, following the precepts and principle of Rastafari.
Okay.
All right. I want to switch to politics.
Okay.
And politics, because the office of the presidency, while there are spiritual elements to it, in the most part, it's a political office, would you say?
Yes, certainly.
All right. And I do understand that the foundation of community life is service.
Yes.
But I'm curious as to your perspective on what the politics of the office involve and the style of politics that you would practice.
Concerning political references, we've been taught from the Ethiopia Africa Black International Congress, the True Divine Church of Salvation, which is where the founder president, God and King Prince Emmanuel, have set the foundation based upon his knowledge and the best way forward. And it says, we the people above all things stand governmentally, statically, sabbatically, and churchically. Concerning politics, we'll follow the pattern of the theocracy reign government, which is still in line with the constitution of His Majesty, Ethiopia, in reference to Rastafari, and also the constitution of all the mansions concerning the Bobo Shanti mansion and the constitution of the theocracy reign mansion. Our divine realm is that concerning politics, our titular head of state is His Majesty. We do not follow the colonial British monarch. So all our principles will be based upon principles being set and laid down by the church and the throne room of His Majesty. Wherein the island of Jamaica has been revealed to possess a population majority of approximately 96.4% Ethiopian African descent, and whereas the presence of people of Ethiopian African descent in Jamaica, other former British colonial territories, in the direct historical consequence of the African slave trade, the foundation of which was laid by Elizabeth I of Tudor, Queen Elizabeth of England, with the granting of a British Royal Charter and a ship named SS Jesus of Lubeck to the renowned British patriarch and celebrated English pirate Sir John Hawkins, who initiated the trade in human cargo with the capture of 300 Africans from the coast of Ghana in 1565. And whereas the African slave trade has been designated the burden of Western civilization for more than 200 years, whereas 450 years of racial commercial bondage and Western colonial exile under authority of the same British Royal Charter has since elapsed, with no current historical evidence of demonstrate to such burden to Western civilization has ever been lifted, seeing that the British throne and parliament has been morally negligent in failing to grant a repatriation act to return descendants of emancipated Ethiopian African people to their ancestral border, on the principled decision taken to dismantle the vast British slave empire with the signing of an Emancipation Act in 1834. So with the Bobo Shanti Foundation, their parliament structure set, and with the Ethiopia Africa Black International Congress, along with the Naibing Theocracy, they are structures set for us to be in that manner to do the political sense of the people.
Set up your own kingdom.
Right, thank you very much. We're going to take a break. Yeah. Yes, we'll take a station break at this point, and then when we return, we're going to look at how, well, as we march towards constitutional reform in Jamaica, how we will seek now to exert some influence on the process so that the 95% Africans in Jamaica can see themselves represented in what's to come.
Exactly.
So
please
stay with us. We'll be right back. Our guest in the house is the president himself, Sizzla Kalonji, accompanied by Miss Maxine Stowe, who is family to you already, and Pastor Percival and myself are guiding you through the morning. This is the Morning Connection. We'll be right back.
Leonard Howell, Marcus Garvey, and His Imperial Majesty were born in the 1890s. this is right after the carving up of Africa, because once we were emancipated as a people, then the great colonial powers sat down in Berlin
And had a
and
conference
divided
and decided who'd get where and who'd have,
in the African continent. So even us in our right to return, it was abrogated because the place that we were to return to as a freed people was immediately
was
carved
divided
up.
Yeah,
You
they
know,
said.
and the only state
That was
that
Ethiopia.
was Ethiopia
yeah.
again, which is significant to our history, and it's also significant to the role and the political, if you want to say, development of His Imperial Majesty. So Howell, all of them are contemporaries of each other, dealing with being born for emancipation and being born to defend Africa.
So I'm seeing three strands or three streams of activity running concurrently, and they seem to have merged in the office of the president. I'm seeing Marcus Garvey being very political and focused on both the economics and the politics, ownership of your destiny. I'm seeing His Imperial Majesty looking at the divine order of things, and we talk about the theocratic reign. I'm seeing that superstructure sitting above it. And I'm seeing Leonard Howell focusing on the spiritual, because man was born free, was meant to be free. And those three strands have come down, and they are now sort of focused in the energies of the president, the Sizzla, the victorious Kalanji. See?
And all of them
I studied a little bit there.
And as you described, all of them were interested in the economics, because they all know that, you know, political freedom without economics,
without means is empty.
Is empty.
Faith without works
right.
is dead.
But I think it's significant that they all three were our contemporaries.
Our contemporaries, yes.
You know, coming out of the universe, and did carry and merge and were, you know, peers almost on a level of this experience that we are now grounded in. So leading up to 1961, 1958 was a very important ground nation in Victoria Park, now William Grant Park, where the Rastafari community, one of the leaders being King Emmanuel, was making provisions for this negotiation that was going on about the independent Jamaica, or the Federation. Or whatever, that in that negotiation, as would be now, that the rights of the African within the right of return would be incorporated in the Constitution. And so those discussions with Norman Manley and M.G. Smith and
Bustamante.
No, he wasn't in it, actually. It was really Manley and
as
M.G.
Premier.
Smith, you know. They created this opportunity and recognized the right of the African to determine their destiny. And that is where the mission to Africa came, where they set up this mission to go to 5 African states to negotiate what would be the basis of such a return. And that trip occurred, and it bore fruit. But then Norman Manley lost the election, and Bustamante took a...
So the politics intervened.
The politics intervened.
And the ground shifted.
Right, and it is at that stage also that His Imperial Majesty had requested of Jamaica to become a founding member of the Organization of African Unity, because it was formed in 1963. So he was recognizing that a lot of the nations in the Commonwealth were gaining, were in this mode of gaining independence.
Or being cut free by the Queen.
And recognized Jamaica.
Some of them had to fight.
Yes. And recognized Jamaica as being an important state, right? And so, a lot of, I'm just setting the stage
yes,
for the president.
I think he's preparing himself to take the horn.
Where we are now,
yeah.
As you know, last couple of weeks, the vestiges of the Queen were here.
Her descendants.
vestiges.
her, des-
Her descendants.
Oh, wow.
her descendants.
Her descendants were
And
here.
in the region.
And we've seen some interesting things happening in the aftermath that I want us to talk about, so let me plant the seed. The Commonwealth and this bid by Jamaica at the point as we are seeking to distance ourselves from the Queen, this bid by Jamaica to take leadership, to be the Secretary General of the Commonwealth. Jamaica has put forward a candidate, and that is a matter to be discussed. What is the relevance of the Commonwealth? This collection of, yesterday I was calling them a survivors club. This 54 countries that have continued in some relationship. It's like hostages keeping in touch with each other after they've been set free. What is the value of it in today's thinking? Mr. President, it is your time. But may I ask you to emphasize as you speak to us, just to emphasize how you see this merger of politics, economics, and spirituality being reflected in the next round of negotiations, because we are moving to constitutional reform by fire or by force. It is happening, so we need to be prepared.
Thank you very much. Well, as I've said, the foundations are being laid by our ancestors. We are just aligning ourselves to follow through. And I like to just make mention of a few directives from the Nyabingi and from the Bobo Shanti, and also the Judah Coptic, wherein which I've now amalgamated all these principles and all these constitutions in one to best serve the public of black people. First, I'd like to start with the Bobo Shanti, as where you say we're going through the spiritual aspect and the political aspect. Now, the membership, the Bobo Shanti, all who desire to become members of the association must abide by the following principles. And without the principles, we'll be in darkness. That they recognize His Majesty, Haile King Selassie I, and the Most Right King Emmanuel for the foundation of the Bobo Shanti, who is Melchizedek, the High Priest of Salem. That they abide by the rules of the Sabbath and the Nyabingi as stated or aforesaid. That in addition, they must attend the Sabbath services unless they are ill, and the Nyabingi services also. That in addition, and specifically, they must dress in a dignified manner when attending church services, and the brethren are to be attired in a robe and turban, and sisters are to cover their heads with a fall and wear robes that cover their ankles. That members are not allowed to carry any weapons of violence. That all members must live in peace and love with each other. That no member is allowed to participate in politics. Yet we, the people, above all organizations, stand politically. Okay. That all members must work voluntarily for their association. That the transgression of lying, defaming, tale-bearing, and stealing are strictly prohibited. That all members must show respect to the banner of the association. That all members must work in unity, loyalty, and cooperation with each other in order to make the motherland of Africa free and to bring forth freedom, redemption, international repatriation for Africans in the diaspora. Now, in saying that, in maintaining that for the foundation of the EABIC, there's a parliament concerning the governance, and that parliament of the association shall consist of 33 members. That's the principle being laid down by Bobo Shanti Prince Emmanuel, that the parliament shall be the governing body of the association. In saying that, to say this, also with the Haile Selassie I, Ras Tafarian Royal Ethiopian Judah Coptic Church, they have laid the foundation from that mansion concerning the Ethiopian alternative union policy, wherein which there should have been a bill passed for such. It was neglected and ushered out based on the fact that we were using marijuana. So known to the fact that the marijuana in this time is not with that realms of
has been decriminalized.
Thank you very much. We're here to push forward with all these principles, guidelines towards the redemption of Ethiopia, Africa. Whereas the people's human rights referendum is urgently warranted today to establish the indigenous sovereignty of the people in Jamaica with religious and cultural autonomy. By definition, a republic is a form of government system which recognizes the supreme authority in the voice of the people in collective security. So Jamaican politicians cannot bring forth any referendum to dispose or remove the absentee British monarchy. Hence, due to the fact that the Jesuit-taught politicians are paid political puppets, actors and agents employed to uphold the Jesuit status quo set here, they neither have the moral capacity nor intellectual ability to fulfill the UN Treaty obligations as witnessed after 59 years of maladministration and negligence. Therefore, by choosing to abolish the Jamaican Constitution unanimously will stand as an expression of the will of the people to dismiss the Privy Council, Jamaica's Prime Minister democratically, while removing the absentee British Queen as head of state and shutting down the Jesuit influence institution of Parliament simultaneously. This people human right referendum shall serve as lawful constructive notice to dissolve the office of the Queen's, the Governor General representative immediately, so that we the people can lawfully inherit the island of Jamaica as private indigenous territory under Article 21.3 of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights Charter, and lawfully install a new debt-free constitutional republic form of democratic government in human rights solidarity with the first president of the new debt-free Republic of Jamaica officially. Since 63% of the voting population have no confidence in the political leadership of Jesuit-taught politicians, then we must endeavor to secure and protect our own indigenous interest. With human rights decision as unlawful taxation without human rights representation is a fundamental basis for international political transformation.
All right. Okay. So you've said a lot of things there, and I'm gonna pull out a few strands just for discussion. The first thing, and I love it, I know Pastor Percival and I would be in agreement with this. The first thing is recognizing that the spirituality of the people, the freedom to practice your religion, is an important and a necessary foundation for society. You've started with the Bobo Shanti and their commitment to observance of the Sabbath, good moral conduct, and so on. Percival, what's your vote?
Vote?
Yes.
I wouldn't say vote. I'm listening, but I find it so instructive that the first document that Sizzla Kolanji referred to, you could have taken that out of a Seventh-day Adventist church in terms of what has happened in terms of.
Well, Seventh-day Adventist because it says Sabbath.
Sabbath,
but outside of that, really, any church that is focused on God.
So what
puts
you're
God
saying
at the center of the society.
So what you're saying is that fear of God, the Almighty, is important in terms of anything that flows, whether it be political or economic.
Everything.
Or absolutely.
And ecclesiastically, that's where we choose our Godhead. Per to say, we'll remove the Queen as our Godhead and serve our indigenous Godhead, because based upon our principles and guidelines, and even so from the Bible, Israel King is Israel's God. And all our prophecies and all our cultures concerning welfare, well-being, the way we eat, came out of
Deuteronomy
the Almighty. And the Bible itself refers to Ethiopia. And the king of Ethiopia is His Majesty. And he had visited Jamaica on this month, the 21st of this month. So everything is part and parcel. So the disciplinary action and principles of the Ethiopia Africa Bloc International Congress, and also of the Nyabingi theocracy reigned, and also of the Haile Selassie Rastafarian Royal Ethiopian Judah Catholic Church, it's part and parcel of the duties should be kept by us, the 94% African descent in Jamaica, in order to remove the British colonial who have had the children of Africa in their territories of slavery.
So I want to sort of put an emphasis on that now, because in the negotiations to come, we already know that majority of Jamaicans are saying we've had enough of the Queen as our head of state. You're making it clear that given our history and who we are in terms of our identity, when we remove the Queen, Jamaicans should be considering replacing the Queen with his emperor, the crown head,
His Majesty.
His Majesty. And the case that you are laying out for that has everything to do with our point of origin, who we are in.
Exactly, because genealogically we're connected to His Majesty based upon the Kebronegus. and based upon the fact that the Roman Catholic had taken away children from Jerusalem, and we are very well of the knowledge that they are here in the Caribbean.
Yes. Yes.
So people from Jerusalem are here in the Caribbean, especially Jamaica. People from Africa, they are here in the Caribbean. You can, for evidence, you can check downtown. We're from a royal indigenous nation of kings and queens. In Jamaica, you have King Street, Queen Street, Princess
Yes.
Street, Prince Street, and
Yes.
for the likes.
There are
Therefore,
memories. We
are
have kept
the
it in our
bloodline
culture.
of the throne of King David. We are the bloodline of the Messiah. In the Latin language, Jesus Christ. In our language, Hebrew Israelite language, Yahshua Mashiach. So we need to stand and represent. So we're not disrespecting any office of the government in no sense. Far be it from me to speak bad about my people and their government, but we need to align ourselves with the Almighty, and based on the fact that we are the children of the transatlantic slave trade, and the British government need to pass the Repatriation Act to return the black sons and daughters to Africa, and with the same like the African government should be having dialogues with the government of the Western diaspora for the resettlement, the return and the resettlement of the children.
That brings me to the next topic for discussion. In 1962, 1958, coming up, Jamaica reached out to Africa through the mission and so on. And Africa responded warmly, but we have not had an explosion of great relationship in the intervening years. I'm asking you now, as president, as we create a platform to build that relationship going forward, are there any specific ambitions or strategies that you would propose to bring not just the Rastafarian community, but Jamaica as a whole into a deeper relationship with Africa? Because I think Africa is now
Certainly.
in a greater state of readiness.
Yes, based upon the Charter of the Human Rights Declaration, it very well stated in one of the articles where the state should provide finance for all these activities, and it should be championed by the Jamaican government because they are a member state of the United Nations, and you're a member state of the United Nations, you should also adhere to the principles of the indigenous people's declaration. So there are set ways in getting all these things done concerning the referendum. So we need to have a courtesy call to the government of Jamaica, having them with the knowledge that we are now in the process of removing the Queen, and we the people will structure ourselves based upon the principles and the precept of the foundation, the grassroots, the indigenous foundation of Jamaica black people.
I love it. I want to hear your views on the continued relevance of the Commonwealth. Jamaica has put forward our own Minister of Foreign Affairs to be the Secretary General. Now, it could be that it is a very good strategy to take charge of those resources and to move it in a direction that meets the needs of our people. But it could also be just walking in the same vein of continuing to foster a relationship that has not worked to our greatest advantage. What do you think? Is the Commonwealth of Nations a relevant institution for Jamaica to participate in?
Well, it is always relevant to have,
Connections.
I would say yes, but properly grafted structure in uniting your kingdoms. And with no disrespect, I do think that the Commonwealth is just an extended arm based upon the stratagem of the government having us in slavery. Same as how you have the Commonwealth, that is how you have the Nyabingi Theocracy reign. And that is how you have the Ethiopia Africa Black International Congress, and that is how you have the Haile Selassie Rastafari, Royal Ethiopian Judah Coptic Church, all foundation praising His Majesty as titular head of state and head of church. These foundations are set to collect the people and teach them the way forward, their African ways, their African spirituality. Yes, they say Rastafari is a movement, but it's a way of life. This is what life had taught us, as His Majesty said. So the Commonwealth is set to unite and keep a set of people with their realms to that elite status in that realms of servitude. Yes, all due respect, but we are here to receive the people, and it is now time for both the Commonwealth through the kingdom of the British monarch to hand over all black people to the Ethiopia Africa Black International Congress, to the Selassie Rastafari Ethiopian Judah Coptic Church, and the Nyabingi Theocracy reign. We are here sitting and we are waiting with all due principles and precepts of the throne to teach the people the way forward. And it is for the Jamaica government to champion the cause of repatriation as the fact that they are a member state of the United Nations.
Very well said. And
just one question.
Go ahead, Percy.
You speak about handing over, but we as a people can decide to move.
Oh, you read
Thank you
my
very much.
mind.
No, that's I'm just saying.
High five,
Repatriation.
Oh,
read
because
my
we
mind.
as a, because you see, an important part of what happens is one man said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. So if we decide to move and say we enough, and the people going one way, there's no way that you can hold the people back. So you begin with that. So if we decide to move, then the leaders who are not coming will have to follow. And one man said, you are leading if you are influencing people, but if people break the influence that you have over them and move, you're good. You're good.
Yes.
So when you say handover, I am just trying to understand.
There's some symbolism.
In
There's
terms
some
of
symbolism
that.
to the
Come up on the
language.
break.
Yeah. But if the producer would allow us, because we could wrap up this point and then there is some symbolism in the call to hand over.
Yes.
And I respect that. I think we must call on them to hand over. But if they choose not to, we're in an Esther moment now.
Mm-hmm.
If they choose not to, and we have seen that they have delayed and they will choose not to, there has to be the alternative, because your salvation will come from somewhere else and they will suffer the destruction. So I want to talk about tribal sovereignty. Not so long ago, our own Prime Minister addressed the Maroons as a separatist faction and made a bold statement, an impassioned statement in Parliament, that not 1 inch of Jamaica will be ceded to separatists under his watch. Now, the issue of tribal sovereignty, which is tied up in that Declaration of Indigenous Peoples from the United Nations, has, in my mind, given us the platform for what Pastor is speaking of. If they fail to do the right thing, we are free to make the choices that are important for us. So I'd love to hear you speak on the alternative, because when they delay or when they fail to, we keep moving, don't we?
Exactly. Well, we're not a nation of crime and violence, as
Thank
we are
you.
the people who have long written the scriptures, where in which the same British government translated and called it the Bible. But then, as His Majesty, we should all know that we the people, above all organizations, stand governmentally, statically, churchically, parliamentally, sabbatically, and ayabingi. Now, as you said before concerning the tribal issues,
Sovereignty, yeah.
yes, if the Prime Minister should say that the Maroons have no such sovereignty, that would be contrary to the fact of Jamaica being independent. Because if you said we are an independent nation, we should break away from the Queen. Therefore, you shouldn't be speaking down on one of the tribe in the country.
True.
As for the fact that Jamaican public, they should know that Miguel Collins was given a title crown from Ghana. I've visited Ghana, I've done 2 shows in Ghana, and upon leaving the country, the chief came to the hotel and crowned me the first royal crown prince of the Toronto throne and pioneer for the repatriation movement. And I was given lands such as a gold mine in Ghana and a title crown. I brought that same chief here to the Nyabingi Theocracy in the Scotch Pass, and I brought that same chief to Bobo Shanti. Now, the Bobo Shanti is part and parcel of the Jamaica nation, because when you had the persecution with the Roman Catholics, these people left Jerusalem and went to deeper Africa. They are the same people forming themselves just to avoid the Roman persecution. They formed that dynasty where the same kings and queens of the Ashanti tribes descended. So the Ashanti tribes are very much the people and the leaders, rulers in Jamaica. So we know as a people should let the government of Jamaica know that if we weren't an indigenous set of people such as the Maroons, there wouldn't have been an established treaty. And if you should say we have no authority concerning the land. You are just merely saying we should destroy the treaty between the Maroons and the British.
And the British.
And in destroying the treaty, that would furtherly bring us to where you say we can do things by ourselves, as a people.
It's time
Great.
for us to take the break, and I believe it's a fitting point because Jamaicans listening need to understand that you have authority and you have power, you have rights, and there are some decisions up ahead of us which will require great fortitude. So thank you for sharing that. Let's
You're
take our
welcome.
break, and then when we come back, we'll just wrap up and say our goodbyes to the president and his team, because the our digital literacy segment is going to follow in short order. Good morning and welcome back to the Morning Connection. You know, during the break, we sometimes dive deeper than we do on air. And this was one such moment because Pastor Percival, rather surprisingly, began to communicate with the artist in the Sizzla. Of course, he's here as president. So we're going to try and pull him back from the alluring cosmic and get back now to the business of Rastafarian Month. For this last segment, I would like us to speak a little bit about what lies ahead. I think the president laid a very commanding track in terms of the politics. I understand too that tied up in the politics is the economics of making sure that the creed to feed the hungry, to clothe the naked, I know that it has to be met. So I'm sensing, Mr. President, that in the next round, we are going to see a lot more activism in those areas.
Exactly.
In terms of the economy.
In terms of the economics.
Because as a wise lady sitting beside you said, you know, we struggled for a long time to get the recognition. But then when we reach there, we never have no money. Because the system still hold on to the money.
Yes.
So you are very much into, because she put on the table the idea in terms of the creative, that there needs to be a way that what has happened with the music internationally comes back to the people so it can drive economic change and reform. What do you think about that?
And here you have a very good example. I myself as an artist.
Yeah.
Because the music is lucrative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've made lots of monies from the music, a lot of not just money, you know, but the basic ingredients for the reggae music came out of the natural indigenous culture of Rastafari from the people of the island of Jamaica, who are descendants from the Africans. So therefore, I personally took it as my part on whose lot it has fallen to administrate upon the government of black people, poor people, and put your money where your mouth is. Therefore, I'm in the streets singing for the people. They have nothing to do with writing a song or even a line in the music, yet they purchase your songs, they supported you at the stage shows, yet there are set foundations in the highland to direct these people to their African spiritual ways, and we are not doing it. Therefore, some of us, we're not much better than the politicians.
Tell me a little bit about the trust, because you have to have a vehicle through which you collect and distribute the benefits of
all right, I would let the Ancient Council designated the Millennium Council to do a lot of work. So that question, I think it would be best for Maxine to answer that question concerning the trust of Rastafari.
And then, Sister Max, you could lead into what are the next steps in the month. Aside from the visit that Pastor Percy has commissioned, there will be a royal visit in proper vestments. So that will happen. We have to put a date to that one, but tell us a little bit about the trust.
Yeah, well, the Rastafari Trust Fund was instituted in 2011 as the outcome of negotiations in relation to indigenous intellectual property rights and ownership. Rastafari community, I think, if I dated it from the late 70s and the early 80s, certainly after the transition of Bob Marley, is when Rastafari culture went, to the zenith in terms of lifestyle companies and trade and festivals and, huge
big business.
Big business. And so the community has talked about their intellectual property rights in terms of managing it. It started actually with negotiations with Bob Marley, and as he was ascending, and certainly the Wailers, as you know, we all know, were the pioneers, some of the early pioneers, gospel missionaries, apostles.
The apostles.
So at this stage, we are, Jamaica as a whole has not protected its people. It's not just Rastafari.
So this is Jamaica in the sense of government institutions
Government
that would
institutions,
normally carry out
right.
those functions.
We are more like fertilizer to global industries and global music forms now. We are being challenged as to whether we own what we even create in reggae. Big discussion now because a white American group won the reggae Grammy,
Just about
which
to comment on
signaled,
that. Yeah.
in the consciousness of the people, what is happening, So even yesterday we were up at Judgement Yard, and white artist with Rastafari locks came and sat at the feet of Sizzla and was strumming, and I'm looking at the whole thing and saying, it seems to be free, but that needs to be administrated.
Right. And so
you know what I mean?
that's where the trust fits in now.
Yes,
because
and even he was directing to the individual, we own the locks and we own what you can do, or we are supposed to tell you. It seemed to be an organic discussion, but it has to rise to the level of policy.
Right.
You understand? So this is where the Rastafari Trust Fund is situated, that we needed to have now a vehicle that we were given instructions by the indigenous rights as to how to set up that vehicle. And that vehicle has also inspired similar vehicles in South Africa. And the president will be working on a mission to Ethiopia where a similar trust
will be established there.
Will be established there.
So can I say in very clear terms then that the trust is open for business, and that those who have benefited for decades from the glory and the wealth of the culture now have a vehicle into which they can put something back for the benefit of the community?
Definitely. And the goodwill that we have generated is even bigger than what people owe us.
Absolutely. And this group of jazz soldiers who won the Grammy, I am sure that in the spirit of even just the music that they have chosen, that they are ready to give back.
Yeah, but it has to be policy.
And that's our job.
It should not be right.
But wouldn't
exactly.
that be our job?
Yeah, that's our job.
That's our job.
That's the
All
job
right.
of the office.
Tell me a little bit more about the rest of the month, and then we don't want to wrap up and take our leave, but that time always comes.
Right. Well, the president has a speech about the month. So
excellent. So back to the president then. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. And before going into the month, I would like to expound on the trust. Now, concerning the trust, there are principles set where the foundations of His Majesty concerning the Bobo Shanti and the theocracy and the Judah Coptic, there are bank accounts before even being established before the trust.
2011,
so,
before 2011.
I'm the treasurer for the Naya being a theocracy reign, and I'm also the treasurer for the Haile Selassie Judah Coptic. Concerning monies going into the accounts for His Majesty's Foundation, there are persons being designated with their signatures. Without these three persons, no money will be dispersed. So, based upon the principle of the trust, anything going out of the foundation must be authorized by the priest, the treasurer, and the secretary, and the family
There's
to oversee
order. In other
what's
words,
going
there's
on. So
order and
concern, it doesn't matter what trust or where the trust is at, there are set principles of the foundation that will oversee the trust. So the trust will still be administered by the priest and the elders, ancient council of all the foundation.
Excellent.
Now, concerning the month of
April.
His Majesty, April, I would like to start with this, the mandate for Rastafari and being a theocracy before going into the month, because going into the month, we should be practicing and keeping the precepts of the foundation. So concerning the Bingi man, a Rasta man is an ancient, someone who is at least 60 years of age with 40 years reputable treading in the faith. The ancient council, previously known as the Assembly of Elders, has been established since the foundation of the Nyabing order in 1947. The ancient council has been functioning as the vanguard and custodian of the Rastafari movement here in Jamaica since the leadership of founder patriarch, the Right Honorable Leonard P. Howell. The ancient council was revised in 1998 and 2003 with the structuring of a working administration for accountability and responsibility. The ancient council consists of 24 active ancients who are still among the congregation of the Nyabingi. 13 members are responsible for presiding over meetings once a month to deal with the overall administration of the Rastafari movement globally. Administrative post, the chair, the coordinator, the secretary. All for one for all. Working in this manner, there will be no failure. The vision statement for the Nyabingi Theocracy reign: I and I claim victory through humility, discipline, and perseverance with the mind, what the mind conceive and believe it can achieve through love, wisdom, commitment, focused action, and overstanding. The mission statement for the Rastaman is: the Council of Ancients stands as the vanguard and custodian for the Rastafari movement globally. The Council of Ancients takes it as a prime duty to see to it that the children of the slave trade are adequately returned and resettled in the land from whence they were taken, Ethiopia, Africa. The duties: the Council of Ancients takes it as a prime duty to centralize the Rastafari movement under the banner according to the Constitution written by His Imperial Majesty Emperor Selassie in 1934 and the revision 1951. The Council of Ancients takes it as a prime duty to authorize, advise, and observe any and every administration carried out in the name of Rastafari. The Council of Ancients will continue to make contact with all Rastafari organizations to have a consultant from each of them appointed to the council, and once this is done, a global call will be made to all consultants to deliberate and establish one program of action for a global Rastafari community, hence the referendum. So this month of April now is being designated by the Rastafari family. There's a lot more to be communicating with, but for the most part, we've reached out to the Bobo Shanti, the Judah Coptic, Maxine herself, reach out to a lot more persons, Ras Profi, and a whole lot. So this month, it was the recording of man's activity throughout his life and his outstanding performances in abiding by the laws and instruction laid down by his creator, ancestors, and elders that have caused us to be the true narrators of such abundant wealth of knowledge that is presently the prime source of reference today. Therefore, we continue to have recorded the constant agitation of repatriation for our black brothers and sisters in slavery today, in having a designated month of celebration for Rastafari, Emperor Selassie. It will further enhance us in the light of a new day and the renaissance for black people worldwide to unite and be of one, our own black family. We see this as a month of spectacular and radiant knowledge sharing based on natural historical fact that is the first month of the 13th Hebrew Israelite month, the month of Abib. Right, based upon the Bible. This is very wholesome. We must now step forward with the zeal of Ethiopia, Africa, to put these significant dates to collective use and continue with the same power and will that have caused these days in our month of April to be of such significance and be the same in time to come. Hence, we have the month of April being designated by the Rastafari family a month of celebration, administration, and the list goes on, etc. Thank you. Happy Rastafari month.
To you also, happy Rastafari month.
As a pastor, moved internationally, one of the things I've said to people, the ultimate return of the Lord Jesus Christ in all of his glory will happen when the race of black people come back to the fore. It started with us.
It will end with us.
It will end with us. So
Blessings.
when we come back to a knowledge of who we are and what it is that God through his infinite wisdom has given to us, then he will emerge.
Thank you very much.
I could not have said it better. Thank you very much, all of you. We didn't get to hear the drums, unless you want to do a slight thing now as we are taking, or as you are taking. our
Eli,
leave.
Selassie, Jah, Rastafari. Prince and princess shall come out of Egypt, and we Ethiopia shall stretch forth our hands and heart unto Jah. O Jah of Ethiopia, his own divine majesty, Imperial Selassie, thy iris come to all dwelling parts of righteousness. Lead us, help us to forgive, that we must be forgiven. Teach us love and loyalty on earth as in Zion. Endure serve thy wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to do thy will. Thy blessings to us, the hungry be fed, the naked be clothed, the sick be nourished, the aged protected, and the infants be cared for. Deliver us from the hands of our enemies, that we may be fruitful in these last days, when our enemies have passed and decayed, depths of the seas, depths of the earth, bowl of the beast. Oh, give us all a place in thy kingdom for ever and ever. Yelemai, Selassie, Jah, Rastafari. Say the new name, Jagat, and terrible amongst them. He then not like Janet. Say the new name, Jagat, and terrible amongst them. He then not like Janet.
You name.
Said it's a new name, precious name, new name, Jah Rastafari. Said it's a new name, precious name, new name, Jah Rastafari. And when you call him Rastafari, watch how we can't tremble. He then not like Janet. And when you call him Rastafari, watch how we can't tremble. He then not like Janet. In a whole amount Zion, in a whole amount Zion, Babylon you gone, Babylon gone. Oh, they increase that trouble in the Most High. Many are they that rise up against thy soul. Many are they that say they don't help in Haile Selassie. But Haile Selassie is our shield. Haile Selassie is our glory. And lift our fire in our head. I call unto the Most High, and he hear us out of the holy hill. I will not be afraid of 10,000 of enemies who have set themselves around me about. Arise, O Rastafari, save thy children. For Rastafari has broken the cheek of the ungodly and broken the teeth of all those enemies. Selassie, bless and keep you always. Jah Rastafari. Precious. In the name of Rastafari.
Blessings.
I'm honored. Thank you very much.
Thank you.